Rajan. Thanks so much for giving us the time. And I'd like to know what makes you, Rajan. You've traveled a long way from MIT to Stanford, so many companies, McKinsey, Dell, and here in Google. Let me know more about you. What makes you?
Yeah, you know, so I'm an engineer by training. As you mentioned, went to some of the interesting engineering schools in the world, and then I decided to work in McKinsey for a long time. So I was a partner in the Chicago office, where I did a lot of work on growth, innovation, sales, marketing, etc. And then since leaving McKinsey at the various technology companies, including now at Google, I spend most of my time really focused around growing businesses, right? So I think if you, what makes me excited is growing, number one, growing technology companies. So it's really about technology, about growth, about innovation, and about building teams. So that's what I'm really about.
So what's going on with the technology innovation within the country, according to you, Rajan?
Yeah, I think India is an interesting point when it comes to technology innovation, where last year India became the third largest internet market in the world, with over 100 million users. In fact, today we have 120 million users. So as we look at the next, in many ways, the last 10 years of the Indian technology industry was defined by IT-enabled services, right? IT exports out of India into markets like the US and Europe and so on. The next 10 years really will be defined by explosive, exciting innovation in the Indian market, really around 3 or 4 very important dimensions around the internet. So internet businesses that range from e-commerce, which is, exploding in terms of number of users transacting online, all the way through content businesses. So traditional internet businesses. Second area is around mobile. Today India has about 50 million mobile internet users, and that number will be 300-400 million over the next 4 or 5 years. And the third area really is around cloud services, right? India, given the nature of India, will where most companies don't have traditional IT investments. We believe India will be a cloud-first IT market, where we'll see a large number of software as a service companies emerge out of India, to first starting off by catering to Indian needs, but then expanding overseas. So really across the spectrum, we are very excited about the potential for innovation in India, particularly around internet, mobile, and software.
So you see sparks of it rising here and there, but my problem is that those sparks go to a certain point. So people have ideas, and beyond that, they never see the light of the day. So what's missing?
Yeah, I think I think what's missing obviously is great engineers who can build great products, who can understand what users really want, who can bring to bear the set of skills, from design through computer science, through product development, through commercialization, right? I think what we really need is, India today has an unprecedented number of opportunities for technology innovation. What we really need is a large number of qualified professionals, or really entrepreneurs, right, who have the requisite skills to go out and make this happen. And we are confident that over the next 10 years, we will see a large number of very interesting, very innovative technology companies come out of India, but obviously that requires a set of skills that we don't have today, right, at scale. I mean, we have it in pockets, as you said, but we don't have it at scale.
What are the particular qualities that you find missing mostly?
Yeah, I think, well, there's clearly a set of qualities around entrepreneurship. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, it's the ability to take risk. It's it's the ability to work with very few resources, etc. But that set aside, if you look at what are engineering sort of based capabilities, I think the first is really, if you look at India, our education, we have a very well established engineering education system, right? And at a simplistic level, it is an education system that's very grounded in first principles, that is excellent at theory, right? But when it actually comes to applying theory to real life problems or real world problems, and building products and solutions around real life problems, that's where the sort of the gap is, right? So what does that really mean? I mean, in terms of solving problems, real problems, as opposed to sort of focusing on theory, I think that's an area we can get better at. In terms of working with teams, working with projects, right? So product development is not an individual exercise. I think that's an area where we can get better at. And also areas like commercialization, right? How do you commercialize a product? How do you make sure it's successful in the market? Because it's one thing to build something, it's a whole different thing to take it to market. So all of those things, I would categorize it as sort of solving real world problems. understanding the theory, which we're very good at, but then how do you really use that understanding to identify real problems and then solve real problems?
And you see that missing in the engineering graduates that are graduated from top-line institutes in the country?
Absolutely. I think we have the smartest engineering graduates in the world when it comes to understanding theory, understanding first principles, but when it comes to actually, let's say, a simple thing like problem solving or creativity or being able to think out of the box, I think those are things that I think our engineering graduates can do a lot better at.
And you think that it requires a change today to address the innovation era that you're talking about?
I think India doesn't produce engineers who are naturally focused on innovation or very good at innovation.
True.
I think we have a lot of work to do on that, right? But I am very confident we'll get there, because fundamentally we have very, very smart students who are extremely dedicated, work very hard. So I think what we need to do is start building into the curriculum and into these programs, practical, real-life problem solving, building products, innovating, working in different types of teams, etc. We build all those things in, and then we will actually get graduates who are much more focused and capable at innovating.
Since the last decades, IT sucked in all the engineers into one stream, that was computer science. So a lot of my friends from IITs, from environmental engineering, chemical scientists, they all sucked into the IT, forgetting their domains, because primarily they didn't have jobs. But now if you look at the industry, you need products, you need engineering products in chemical sciences and so many other sciences. What's your opinion about that? How do we tackle that?
Well, I think the only way to have engineers in all those disciplines is to have jobs.
Yes, exactly.
So if there are no jobs, then we won't have engineers. I think what's exciting about the next 10-15 years, even if you look at computer science, right, is the potential to build internet businesses is unprecedented. The potential to build mobile-based businesses is unprecedented. The ability to build cloud-based software businesses is unprecedented, right? So where I think over the last 10 years, we had almost all large percentage of the engineers across, as you said, across different engineering forms go into IT services. I think what we'll see over the next 10 years, obviously that will continue, because it's a very vibrant industry that we have in IT exports, IT services exports. I think we'll also see a large number of engineers go into sort of more product
engineered products.
Yeah, software products, whether it's construction, whether, pick your favorite, pick your favorite area, right? Also the internet. I mean, the internet will create thousands of companies, right?
Or healthcare, it's more complex. So you need integrated product design, where you require both multiple skills coming together. But that's missing, you see.
That's right. I think really what India needs is, graduates who can build great product companies around the internet, around mobile, around software. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg actually didn't graduate. We'd love to have, a handful of Mark Zuckerbergs with degrees, ideally, who are that innovative, who are that creative, who can build companies, who can change the world. And that's what we need.
What is your opinion about multidisciplinary?
Yeah, I think, when I think about multidisciplinary, it's very important because of how one needs to think when you innovate, right? When you innovate, you can't really be thinking only on one dimension. You can't only think about the existing rules. In many ways, innovation is about breaking rules, creating new rules, right?
Exactly.
And the only way you do that is by thinking through problems in very different ways. Now, one way practically you can actually get that in an educational system is to actually go through different disciplines, right? Whether it's computer science, electrical engineering and design, or whether it's computer science, mechanical engineering and industrial engineering, or whether it's computer science and art.
Exactly.
Right? Or computer science and economics. And it's very, very important, because that's how people learn how to think differently. And in many ways, if you were to sort of say, what does it take to be innovative? It actually requires you to think differently, right? It's about think differently. And the only way to learn how to think differently is to be exposed to very different kinds of disciplines, functions, problems, and people, actually, So the best way to be actually innovative is to spend time with people who are not like you, who do different things, etc.
Because problems come as a multidisciplinary background. They are not single. So how long and what will it take for India to set up a company like Google?
Yeah, look, I think in the next decade we will see not one but many companies emerge out of India that will basically be very similar to Google in that they will change the world. right? So if you look at companies like Google, and there are several like Facebook and others, they're basically changed how people interact, changed how people do. With Google, it's about this notion of the access to information, all the information in the world at your fingertips, right?
Exactly.
A few keystrokes and you basically get answers to all the questions that you want.
Yeah.
And that's how Google's changed the world, right?
Yeah.
I think in India what we'll see is companies that will change how we live, that will create whole new industries. And we're very confident that India will see that over the next 10 to 20 years, right? I mean, for instance, you're seeing already companies like InMobi, which is the second largest mobile ad network in the world, valued at over $1 billion. Company's been around only 3 years, and it used to take a decade in the US to build $1 billion company.
Exactly.
And today we are seeing in India $1 billion companies, not many yet, but being built in 3 or 4 years. So we are very confident, and we think those companies will be built in India out of by addressing uniquely Indian problems, right? Where let's take a simple thing like we don't have enough hospitals. So what do? Well, actually building world-class, world-scale hospitals is probably not the answer, because most people can't afford that in India, right?
Yes.
So the company, can you build a multi-billion-dollar company by reinventing how healthcare is delivered in rural India? And the answer is yes. Now to do that, you have to understand healthcare, you have to understand medicine, you have to understand delivery, you have to understand technology, and you have to be very innovative in terms of how you develop a new kind of delivery mechanism or system.
Now you're touching on a topic which is very crucial. You're defining ICT, because in public there is an ambiguity about the term. People still think ICT is just about e-learning. Could you talk about it?
Yeah, I think ICT, which is information, communication and technology, is really how you bring together in many ways hardware, software, telecommunications and everything around those set of technology platforms or industries really to solve very specific problems, right? So healthcare, how do you solve the problem around lack of medical records? That's an ICT problem to solve, right? If you look at retail, how do you solve, how do you make sure that retailers can maximize their profits? Well, one way to simply do it is really understand your customers, what they bought, who they are, what they like, what they don't like, and over time you predict what they might like, right? So that again is a is sort of an ICT problem. So we actually just think of it as all technology. It's about technology, and technology is very broad, it's very varied, and the magic of technology is when you figure out how to use the right set of technologies to solve big problems. Right? And that's where magic happens, when you solve big problems.
That's true. So what kind of engineering graduates and qualities are you actually looking at when you hire for Google, or as a scientist, as a prime person in the field? What would you like to say to the students? What are the qualities?
Yeah, I think obviously you have to be very grounded in first principles, deeply understand the theory. That's very important, because regardless of you can't really do creative things if you don't understand the theory and the first principles. But there's several other things we're looking at. We're looking at the ability, have you really solved some real problems, as opposed to only focused on theory for 4 or 5 years, right? We're looking at, have you built something? The greatest predictor of somebody who can build a software product or an internet business or a mobile business, or for that matter a healthcare technology product, is actually building stuff. So we like people who have done more than just studied theory. So they've built things, they've practically applied their knowledge. We like candidates who are at Google particularly, we like candidates who are rather, have very different perspectives. So they've done a lot more than just studied computer science for 3 or 4 years and done very well. There are a lot of them. Obviously, that's a requirement. You need to have done very, very well in your grades, etc. But we also look for people who have other interests. They like literature, they like art, they like sports, and they've excelled in those things, because if they've done many things in life, it's a pretty good predictor that you're going to be much broader and much more successful, right? So we look for interesting things like that.
Okay, my last question would be, so when India is poised towards change and you're talking about innovation, what is it that you would like to say to the parents who are still a bit skeptical about doctors and engineering degree for the children? So what would you like to say to them?
Yeah, I think, technology has changed our lives over the last 20, 30 years, and one could argue over the last 50 years. But in many ways, the extent to which technology has changed mankind over the last 30 years will pale compared to how technology will change us, the world, and the 7 billion people in the world over the next 20 years. And I think as parents, you want your children to change the world. I mean, really, you want them to change the world. And the best way to change the world is through technology, because the best, the easiest, the fastest, and the most lucrative way to change the world, way to give back, way to make a huge impact on society is through technology, right? And quite frankly, I couldn't imagine what else I would be doing than being in the technology industry.
Thank you, Rajan, for your time and for your inputs, especially for the audience, especially for the students and for the parents. Because India is poised towards the change, we need a change in the engineering education system, and that's what we discuss now, and we have some good pointers from him.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.